All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. So today we are going to we have our class. All right. We'll continue our last topic with another subtopic, which is lipids. Okay. So this is going to be our third class. So before that, let me stop my camera first. Then I will share you my screen. Okay, so I hope all of you can see my slide. Yeah.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes. Okay. Good. And can hear my voice clearly.
Yep, clearly.
All right. Okay. So today topic lipid. All right. So still in the main topic, which is major organic molecules of living cells. Okay. So last week we already learned about carbohydrate. And now we will going to continue with lipids. And for the next week, we'll continue about protein. Okay. So before we further our topic with lipids, you remember our first class. I'll skip the subtopic of water. So today I will continue the subtopic of water first before we proceed to lipid. All right, because this topic related to each other. All right. So water. All right. So about 70% of the Earth's surface is water, and also our body is actually constituents of about 60% of our body is actually water. All right. And this simple molecule plays important roles in all kinds of processes. We need the water to to conduct all the systems in all living organisms, okay, including humans, plants, and so on. And why this call the water called a simple molecule? Because the water only have oxygen elements and also hydrogen elements. So water is a molecular compound consisting of polar molecules that have a band shapes. Okay, so we call as a polar molecules. Okay, so a polar molecule is actually a covalent bond. Okay, between two atoms. Okay, so we already know the water they have two elements, two atoms, right? That the electrons of this atom are forming the bond that unequal, all right, unequally distributed. Okay, so this one will so because of this unequal distribution of the electron, so one of the end of this molecule, okay, has slightly negative charge and the other one have slightly positive charge. Okay, so the oxygen atom acquire a partial negative charge while the hydrogen atom acquires a partial positive charge. Okay, so this is actually make the water structure bend. Okay, have a bend shape, right? So we go to the structure of water. So water is a simple molecule, just now I mentioned about, which is consisting of one oxygen atom bonded to two different hydrogen atom. So actually one oxygen and also two hydrogen, right? So because of the higher electronegativity of the oxygen atom, all right, of the oxygen atom, so the bonds are polar covalent, which is have the polar bonds. So these oxygen atoms will attract the shared electrons of the covalent bond to a significantly greater extent than the hydrogen atoms. Okay, so as a result here, so the oxygen atom acquire a partial negative charge. Okay, partial negative charge molecules visualized in three different way. Okay, so this is these three are actually the water molecules. So the first one is the ball and the stick model. So they have the ball and also the stick here model. And also the B1 is actually the space that filling model. And also the C is actually the structural formula with partial charge of oxygen atom and also the hydrogen atom. Okay. So hold on, I think someone want to join our class. Ada pula. Oh, ada. Alright. Okay. So, water, again, in human body, it actually mostly are water, which is when we are studying about the lean muscle, it actually consists of 70% of the water. And also the blood. In our blood, actually 80% of the blood is actually water. Body fat, 20% of it is water. And bone is actually 20% of the human bones are actually consists of a water. So all living organisms, they acquire a water to live. All right. So as you can see from here, this is the human body. Okay. All of the main components of our body is actually consists of the water. All right. So now, properties of water. So polar molecules have special properties. Okay, the water is actually a good solvent. You already know about this, and also they have the cohesion, which is they bond with each other with the cohesions. Okay, and this water actually take longer to heat and also to cool. Right. So this is the one molecules of water, which they have the bonding with another molecules of water. As you can see from here, the hydrogen is attracted and bonding with the oxygen because they have the different negative electron. All right. So the unit of water. Just now I mentioned about the cohesion. The water actually they have the adhesion bond. All right. So as you can see from here, we take examples of a water drop. Okay, so this water drop is actually composed of the water molecule. Inside the water drop, they have a many water molecules. Okay, they are like to stick together. So this is actually the examples of the property of cohesion. Okay, when all the molecules water they are stick together. So this bonding we call as a cohesion bond. All right, and this figure also shows a pine needle. Okay, pine needle figure. So the droplet water here are stuck at the end of the pine needles. Okay, so this is actually the examples of the adhesions. Okay, where the water, okay, the molecules of water are stick at the end of the fine needles. So this bond is actually we call as a adhesions. Okay, so and again and here you also notice that in this figure, okay, is the effect of this gravity, right? Okay, so the gravity has an effect on the water drop. Okay, so gravity is actually working against both adhesions and cohesions bond. All right, which is the gravity is trying to pull down the water downward, right? So this is the gravity, right? So the adhesion is actually the bonding with the water molecules to the pine, right? To the pine needles. And also the cohesion bonding is actually the bonding within the molecules of water. So actually the adhesions and also the cohesions bonding actually winning the battles of the gravity. All right, as the drops are sticking on the the pine needles. Okay, compare they will drop towards the gravity. So this is actually we call as the cohesions and also adhesion bond. So this is the uniqueness of the water. Okay, even though they have the gravity, right? Okay, so how about hydrophilic and hydrophobic? Okay, so hydrophilic is actually relating to or having a strong affinity for water. Okay, so this is what we call hydro. Hydro is a water, philic, all right? So this essentially means that the ability to mix well, dissolve, or to be attracted to the water. Okay, and how about the hydrophobic? So hydrophobic is actually the resistant to or avoiding wetting. So this is practically the opposite of the hydrophilic. So according to actually this is the straight definitions where hydrophobic is against of the water, while the hydrophilic is actually the attracted to the water. So in Latin, okay, so hydrophobic mean hydro is the water and phobic mean fear of. So hydrophobic is actually water that fear of. Okay. So what is actually the difference between these two, the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic and also the hydrophobic? So something defined as hydrophilic is actually attracted to the water, philic, while something that is hydrophobic, which is fear of, is actually resists to the water. So this is the main differences between these two, hydrophilic and also hydrophobic. So when the hydrophobic items come in contact with liquids, okay, so bila yang any of hydrophobic yang fear of the water come in contact with liquid, so water is encouraged to beat up and roll off the surface, almost pushing, okay, almost pushing it away like a magnet push away the metal objects. Okay, so this is what we mean as a hydrophobic. All right. So organic molecules. In last topic of carbohydrates, I already mentioned about the organic molecules. So organic molecules is actually any molecules that containing a carbon. Okay, so any molecules containing a carbon we call as a organic molecule, except this CO2. Okay, except this carbohydrate. All right. So why is this CO2 is we can call it as the organic molecule. Okay, this is because the organic molecules is not just because the molecule that contain the carbon, right? It's not about this. This is actually they are content of hydrocarbons bonding, which is the carbon are bonded to the hydrogen. Okay, so the carbon hydrogen, the CH bond has a lower bond energy compared to the carbon and oxygen bond in the carbon dioxide. So this is even though the CO2, the carbon dioxide have the carbon in the molecule, but we can't call this CO2, this carbon dioxide as an organic molecule because this is actually the bonding between carbon and also oxygen. Okay. So most organic molecules are arranged like a change, right? Like a change. And each link is a monomer. I hope you still remember about the terms of monomer. And a chain is a polymer, which is a building block of a monomer. We call it as a polymer. And a large molecule made up of a long chain or a chain is a macromolecule. All right. So we move to our topic, which is lipids. Okay. So lipids is actually a fatty compounds made of a CHO, all right? And these lipids, they don't interact with the water. So these lipids is actually we call as the hydrophobic, okay, which is a fear of the water, all right? And even though these lipids are made of the same elements, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, as the carbohydrate, right? In our last lecture, we are talking about carbohydrate. They have the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So even though these lipids have the same elements as carbohydrates, but they have very different structure. Okay, you remember the structure of the carbohydrate. So even though they have the same component of elements, but they have the different structure, and therefore they are very different biological properties. Okay, compared to the carbohydrates. All right. So cell members are composed of two lipid layers which keep water from crossing. Okay, later on we'll study more details about the classification of lipids and also the structure of lipids, right? And lipids are polymer and also made up of a fatty acid monomers. Okay, so fatty acid have oily tails. Okay, so this is the tails. Fatty acid have the oily tails and also polar head. All right. So the polar head is actually a yay water. It's a hydrophilic, but the tail of the fatty acid is actually the hydrophobic. Right. So lipids. Okay, and again, lipid is an organic substance, okay, that found in living systems, okay, in our living system, that is insoluble, which is hydrophobic, okay, but is soluble in organic solvents. So lipids is actually very widely in their structure. They have mostly carbon and also hydrogens, and some of them they have a few polar atoms or a functional groups. Later on we'll study about the functional groups of the classification of the lipids. Okay, sorry. So this is the lipid layer, right? Just now we were talking about they have the head, the hydrophilic head. They also have the hydrophobic tail, right? So this is what we call a lipid layers. So lipid in the water will arrange themselves to hide their tails because the tails are hydrophobic, fear of the water, right? So they are layer in the two layer because they're trying to hide their hydrophobic tails. Okay, and the cell membranes are composed of the uh, composed of a phospholipid bilayer. Okay. So this phospholipid, what is the phospholipid? So phospholipid is actually one classification of the lipid. Okay, later on we'll study about the phospholipid. So this is the cell membrane. The example of the functions of the lipid, which is cell membranes. So they are composed of phospholipid bilayer. So this is the we call as the hydrophilic head, which interact with the watery environment. All right. So this is the hydrophobic tail, okay, which not interact with the watery environment. Okay, orang tahu bunyi pula. So lipids, again, lipids is organic molecules. They have these CHO elements, okay, and they are categorized into four types. Just now I mentioned a little bit about the phospholipids. That play the important role in the cell's membrane. So actually, they have four types of lipid. The first one is the fat and oils, or we call as the uh, triglyceride. Okay, the triglyceride, they actually is a fat and oils. So the second types of lipids, we have the phospholipids, right? And the third one, they have the steroids. And the fourth one, they have the waxes. Okay, so even though these four types, they have a different in different they have a different structure. They are different in many respects, right? But they have one characteristic in common, which is all of these types of lipids, all of these lipids are actually insoluble to water, which is the hydrophobic biomolecules. Okay, even though they have a different structure, they have their different functions, okay, but they have one characteristic in common, which is they are hydrophobic. Okay, so fat and oils make up 90% of the nutritional lipids. So fat and oils we also call as the triglycerides. Okay, so the other 5% are steroids and waxes are functional only. So fats are solid triglycerides and oils are liquid triglycerides. Okay, later on we study what is the difference between fat and oils. Okay, even though they are formed in one group, which is triglycerides. Okay, so this is the general structure of the lipids. So this is actually the phospholipids, which has two fatty acid bonded with one phosphate group, while this is actually the triglyceride. Okay, the glycerol group, they are bonded with three layer of fatty acid. So this is only have two, this is three. So this is triglyceride, so this is the phospholipid. And this is actually the steroid, okay, steroid structure. All right. So we go, okay, again, fat and oils. So we go to the first types of lipids, which is the triglycerides, okay? So fats and oils, the triglycerides that we eat. So they actually, the bonding of the glycerol, um, glycerol group with the three change of fatty acid. Right, so this is one fatty acid, so this is two fatty acid, so this is the third fatty acid. So all of these three fatty acid will bond with the glycerol group. All right, so these triglycerides of these fatty acids are categorized or are named by the length or number of carbon in the side change. Okay, so they have a lot of carbon. They actually categorized with this number or length of the carbon. And the two is actually the number of carbon or carbon double bonds in the side change. Okay, later on we study about the carbon double bond or carbon bond. Alright. So still in the type of triglyceride, okay, the fat molecules, the structure is actually the three fatty acid change. Okay, one, two, three. Three fatty acid change are linked to the glycerol group, right? And this function of the triglyceride is actually they serve as a long-term energy storage and also as an insulations for animals. So these triglycerides can be saturated or unsaturated of fat molecules. Okay. So this is actually the bonding of the three change of fatty acid and also the with the glycerol group. So this bonding we call as a same with the carbohydrate. In the last week in the last class we call as a dehydration synthesis. Okay, so this is the process of dehydration synthesis. So we move to the first type of the triglyceride, which is saturated fat. Okay. So all carbon are bonded to hydrogen. All carbon are bonded to hydrogen. Okay, so this is saturated fats. There is no carbon double bonds. This is no carbon double bonds. Okay, all are one carbon bond, right? So this is saturated fats. There are the saturated fats also long and also straight change. Okay, straight change. They are also can be found in most animal fats and also butter. Okay, and they are solid at the room temperatures. Okay, but they will become liquid if they are unsaturated fats at the room temperature. But saturated fats actually it can in the form of solid when it in the room temperature. All right, and this will contribute to cardiovascular disease. Okay, so this is actually normally we can find it at the back of our food product. So when it saturated fat, so this is not really good food, all right, because they are content of the saturated fat. Because the saturated fat actually they have the longer change, which is they are having the higher boiling point, high boiling point to break down the fat compared to the unsaturated fats. Okay, so some of the saturated fats they will contribute to the heart disease beside the cardiovascular disease. Okay, and these saturated fats they are normally called as a fat bed. Okay, so we move to the unsaturated fat. Okay, so in unsaturated fat, they at least have one carbon double bond in the fatty acid. As you can see from here, so we are talking about the triglyceride, right? So triglyceride is actually composed of the three change of fatty acid with the glycerol group. But in the unsaturated fat, they have at least one carbon double bond in the fatty acid, as you can see from here. All right, so they normally can be found in the plant and fish fats, the vegetable oils, and also these unsaturated fats are liquid at the room temperature. Okay, they are liquid at the room temperature. Compared to the saturated fat, they are solid at the room temperature. All right, and here, so this is the nutritional facts. Normally, we can find it at the back of our food product. So they have the saturated fat. They also have the polyunsaturated fat and also mono unsaturated fat. So this is actually still the same unsaturated fat. Okay, but what makes the difference between poly and mono is that monosaturated fat, this is actually a type of unsaturated fat. that contain only one double bond of carbon. So this is monosaturated is actually a good fat, right? And when we're talking about polyunsaturated, so this is still the type of unsaturated fat, but it contain two or more double bond of carbon. Maybe in here they also have the double bond of carbon. So this is what we call as a polyunsaturated. Okay, so this polyunsaturated fat are potentially even better than monosaturated fat. All right. So this is the difference between the saturated fat and also the unsaturated fat. So this is the structure of the unsaturated fat, which is they have the double bond here, which cause the structure of this fatty acid will bend. All right. So this difference between unsaturated and saturated fat. All right. So as you can see from here, uh, in the red bar is actually the saturated fat. So the blue is the monosaturated. This both green and yellow is actually polyunsaturated. So these animal fats and the tropical oils of coconut and palm are mostly saturated fatty acid. So some vegetable oils such as olive and canola oil, they are rich of unsaturated fatty acids. All right. And many vegetables oils are rich with polyunsaturated fatty acid. So as you here you can see which one is healthy, which one is not really healthy food. Right? When you look at the either they are saturated or unsaturated or unsaturated fat. Right. So this is the examples of incomplete labels. Okay. So when we see at the back of our food product, when they are only stated the fat is actually 10 grams. So the fat is actually 10 grams. So this is we call as the incomplete labels because they don't state it either the fat is the saturated or unsaturated. Okay, because we need to know these types of fat because we know that the unsaturated is more healthy compared to the saturated. Okay, because they have our body can break down the fat easily compared to the saturated fat. All right. So this is the example of trans fat with informative label. Okay, so in here they stated that fat content of 8 gram, which is fats are divided into polyunsaturated. Okay, which is the polyunsaturated. Also, they have the omega 6, omega 3. For the fat, also they have monosaturated fats and also saturated and also trans fat. So this trans fat is actually it transform the unsaturated fat, okay, from the unsaturated fats into solid or nearly solid saturated fat. So it called as a trans fats. Okay. So the most common sources of trans fats is actually include you can find it in the cakes, okay, pies, creamy filling, fried food, okay, which is or cookies, which is we call it as the unhealthy food. All right. So normally all of this food that make up from the trans fat is actually it made from the margarine or shortening. All right. So this is what we call as a trans fat. All right. Okay. So just now we are talking about the first type of lipids, which is triglycerides. So we move to the second type of lipids, which is phospholipids. All right. Okay. So phospholipid, the structure of phospholipid is different with the triglyceride, which is they only have 2 fatty acid chains. Compared to triglyceride, they have 3 fatty acid chains. But what make it different is actually they are also had the bond with the phosphate head. So the glycerol, the fatty acid is changed still bonding with the glycerol group, but they have the phosphate head that bond with the third carbon of the glycerol head. Alright. So in the fatty acid change, okay, there are non-polar, which is hydrophobic, water-fearing, cell's membrane. So we call it as a phospholipid bilayer. As you can see from here, so this is the formation of the phospholipid bilayer, which is the head of the phospholipid. We already know that the head of the phospholipid is actually the hydrophilic, which is polar head. So this polar head is actually, they are mixed well with the watery environment, right? And they are high up their tail, which is the hydrophobic, which is the non-polar tail, from the watery environment. So this phospholipid, the bilayer phospholipid, is actually made up the cell membrane here. Okay, so the cells membrane here. Let's say this is one cell, inside here the water, outside here also have the water. Third types of lipids, which is steroid. Okay. Hai, bunyi pun. Steroid. So what is the structure of steroid? So this is the structure of steroid. Okay, it different with the phospholipid and also triglyceride. Okay, they are structured as a four fused carbon ring. Okay, four fused carbon ring. So this structure, when you look at this structure, is actually steroid structure, right? So for example, in steroid we have cholesterol. Cholesterol, the functions of cholesterol is actually to control the fluidity of the membrane of the cell membranes. We also have hormones. So the functions of hormones is actually, it can regulate the processes in the body, such as pregnancy. Okay, so the hormone also, for example, we have testosterone. We also have we also have estrogen. Okay, so this is the hormone. And also we have vitamin. Okay, vitamin. So vitamin A, vitamin B, or vitamin D. So these vitamin are functions to support the metabolism, also cells process in human life or in living organisms. So as you can see from here, even though this is actually different component of steroid, but they have the main structure, they have the four fused carbon ring. All right, but they are attached or bond to the other component group. We call it as a functional group. So this is cortisone. Okay, so this is the difference. They are bonding with the other functional groups to act as the cortisone. We also have vitamin D. They are bonding with other functional groups to form as a vitamin D and also cholesterol. But the main structure of steroid, actually, they are four fused carbon rings. Okay. So we move to the last types of lipids, which is the waxes. Okay, so the waxes is actually solid at room temperature. Okay, so the waxes are insoluble in water. Okay, they are non-polar and repel water. Okay, so they are, the function of waxes is actually for the protective covering for animals and plants. Okay, so these waxes can be found in the protective coating on leaf. Okay, as you can see, so they some sort have a wax. Okay, it's a wax on the leaf. Okay, so they are can be found in the protective coating on the leaf and also outer surface of other animals. Okay, for example, here in the bee wax, ear wax of the animals. Okay, to protect their inner part of ear of the animals. Also, the wax can be found in the cuticle of leaf. Okay, keeps water in. And also for the bees, it's actually the bees are construct the honeycomb from the wax. Okay, so the wax also is actually a part or a type of polyp, like or a type of lipid. Alright, so we have four types of lipids, which is triglyceride, phospholipids. We also have steroid and also waxes. Okay, so that's all for today's class. We covered all the main important information about lipids. Okay, you must remember that we have four types of lipids. Okay, we also have for the triglyceride, we have fat and also oils, right? You must know the structure of each type of lipids, right? And also you must know the functions of the lipids, right? So we still have time for about 10 minutes more before 9:50. So let we try to have some sort of, quiz. Okay. So can you see here? The first questions, I hope that all of you can answer, all right? Answer together because this is very simple, all right? So what is the functions of a triglyceride? Number one, number two, number three, or number four? Is it a stores and transfers genetic informations, long-term energy storage, or control the rate of reactions, help to fight the disease? What is actually the functions of triglyceride? One, two,
Long-term
or
Number
energy
two,
storage.
long-term energy storage. Number two,
number?
Two.
two.
Yes, correct. So the main functions of triglyceride is actually as a long terms of energy storage. Okay, all right. So question number two. Which type of lipid makes up the majority of the cell membranes? Either
Phos-
one, phospholipid, steroids, or triglycerides.
Phospholipid.
Number
Phospholipid.
one,
One.
phospholipid.
Yes, you must remember that for phospholipid, we have the bilayer phospholipid that make up the cell's membrane. So in phospholipid, the structure is that they have the hydrophilic of head, and also they have the hydrophobic of tail. Okay, so they are made up of two fatty acid chain that bond with the glycerol group, and also they have three carbon group, and one carbon in glycerol group. They are attached or bond to the phosphate group. So this phosphate group is the phospholipids. It's the phospholipids, okay, the polar region. So these head are actually, they are mixed well with the watery environment compared to this tail. So the structure must be like this, okay. So this is we call it as a bilayer of phospholipids, right?
Doktor.
Doctor, are you there?
Doktor.
Okay, I cakap seorang-seorang rupanya just now. Boleh dengar tak?
Sekarang boleh dah
Sekarang dah boleh dah,
doktor.
Doktor.
Sedih lah I cakap seorang-seorang tadi. So, kat mana I stop?
Kuis nombor 2 kot, tak silap.
This one,
Apa
phospholipid.
structure of phospholipid tu?
Okay, yang I conteng-conteng tadi, dengar tak?
Dengar yang doktor lukis yang structure tu.
bilayer.
Okay, sampai situlah. You faham lah kan? Penat lah I cakap. So, bilayer, kecil pula head dia. Bilayer So, we call it as a bilayer phospholipids. Right.
Doktor.
Doktor, kita orang tak
Doktor
nampak
tak,
skrin.
doktor tak share lagi screen. Sebab tadi doktor terleft.
Ya, ya, ya. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, boleh nampak? Boleh ya? Can you see my slide?
Boleh,
Okey,
boleh.
doktor.
Okay. So this answer for this questions is phospholipids. Okay. If they are made up of cell membranes, so we call as a bilayer phospholipid. So this head of hydrophilics is actually the part of mixed well with the watery environment compared to the hydrophobic tails. Okay. So we move to the third questions. Fats that have at least one double bond between carbon atoms are called unsaturated, saturated, glycerol, or fatty acid.
Unsaturated.
Yes, at least,
Number 1.
yes, correct. At least one double bond we call as the unsaturated. So this unsaturated we have mono unsaturated. We also have the
Poly.
unsaturated.
Unsaturated.
So what difference between mono and polyunsaturated is that mono unsaturated have
Bateri low.
Kenapa?
Ya, bateri aku cepat habis.
Apa tu?
Afiq tutup mic.
Afiq tutup mic, tak nampak.
Sorry
Nampak
doktor.
screen I je.
Sorry.
So what is the difference between monounsaturated and polyunsaturated is that monounsaturated have one double bond of between carbon. Okay. While the polyunsaturated they have at least two or more double bond of carbon. So this double bond of carbon make the structure of the fat bending. Okay, they will have a band structure of change, fatty acid change, right? Okay, so good. The answer is unsaturated. Okay, next. Phospholipids have a hydrophobic head and hydrophilic tail, or hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. I think this is the last questions.
Number
One,
two.
Number 2.
correct. So phospholipid they have the hydrophilic head because of they have the structure that bond with the phosphate group. That make the head of this phospholipid a hydrophilic head, right? Compared to this hydrophobic, which is composed of fatty acid, two change of fatty acid. All right. So the answer correct, hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. Ada lagi lah. Okay. Which of the following is an example of steroid? Fatty acid, sex hormone, phospholipid, or olive oil?
Sex hormone.
Sex hormones.
Sex hormone, correct. So fatty acid is actually a component in the triglyceride and also phospholipid, right? Sex hormone is actually a component in the steroid. Yes, good. So phospholipid also same. This olive oil. Olive oil is the saturated or unsaturated?
Unsaturated.
Unsaturated because they become a liquid in a room temperature. Alright, so they are unsaturated fat. All right. Ada kita? Okay, good. The answer is sex hormone. Okay, that's all. Okay. So is it okay for today's topic, which is lipid?
Okay.
Okay, boleh bawa ya. Alright. So okay, so 9:50. Cepat sikit kita habis hari ni, 9:50. So for the next week on Monday we will continue. No problem, Afiq. Next week on Monday we will continue about topic protein, and on Wednesday we will have our first test. Okay, so please read up my notes and also extra notes. Okay, you can easily you can easily have it from the Mr. Google, right? So the test will cover from lecture 1 to proteins topic, all right, except enzyme. So and again next week on Monday we'll continue our major molecules topic with this topic of protein, and on Wednesday we will have our test, first test for SIJ1001. So please make sure that you have a strong internet connectivity, right? And also please be punctual because the test is only 30 minutes. Okay, I will open it from 9 to 10. Okay, so you can answer the 30 minutes, the test is within that time. So when you are starting the test at let's say 9:10. Okay, so you will automatically finish up the test at 9:40. If you are start your test at 9:40, so it won't be extend until 10:10. All right, so at 10 a.m. it automatically the test will submit automatically. All right, so the test will open from 9 to 10, but the test is only takes 30 minutes. Okay, so it will cover the first topic until next Monday topic, which is protein. Okay, so the next Monday, the other next Monday, 2 weeks more Monday, so that will be our last group together. So we will study about enzyme. So on next 2 weeks Wednesday, you will continue with Dr. Nurul Shamsina. Okay, so we will only have 2 more synchronous class. Okay, 2 more synchronous class next Monday and also next 2 weeks Monday. All right. So that's all from me for today. Do you have any questions regarding this topic?
Doktor.
Yes, Sakinah.
Ah.
Yes.
Saya dah tanya, tak tahu lah macam keluar tajuk ke tak. Apa macam tadi kan, water dia polar kan, polar molekul kan. Lepas tu semalam saya tengok video, dia kata kalau water tak, dia bukan non-polar molekul, nanti bumi ni dengan kita semua dah akan musnah. Kenapa ya doktor?
Susah nak menjawab soalan tu. Itu menyebabkan bumi kena kemusnahan tu.
Tu hypothetical question lah kan.
Hypothetical questions tu. So what do you think about our structure? When we study about the component, the structure, the component, the elements of water. Okay, kalau dia jadi sebaliknya, what do you think?
Tak tahu lah doktor.
Jadi kan doktor kan. Doktor.
Doktor, kami tak dapat dengar.
Sorry, I cakap lepas tu terleft. Okay, Sakinah, what do you think? What do you think? We already learned about the structure, the bonding of the water elements, water atoms. So what do you think? We know that, dengarkan suara I kan?
Sekarang dengar doktor.
Okay,
Dengar.
we know that we have the bonding of, water, we have oxygen, right? And also hydrogen, carbon, right? Bonding. But if it could not form the hydrogen bond in the water molecules, okay, so it would be a gas at a room temperature. So nanti bila dah mix up the hydrogens and so the carbon bond, so kita semua ni akan ada it will have a gas at the room temperature. So water semua akan jadi gas dekat room temperature. So that is basically the scientific answer lah to that questions. So sebaliknya tu hanya Allah Taala yang tahulah. Okay. So that is the scientific, because kalau tak ada hydrogen bond, okay, with the carbon, so the water itself akan jadi gas at room temperature. Okay.
Okay doktor, thank you doktor.
Itu nak menjawab soalan saintifik lah, macam tu. Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll stop here. I'll see you on next Monday. We'll have our last topic, protein, before we're gonna have our test. Alright. So thank you very much for your cooperation for today's class. I'll see you on next Monday. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank
you,
you,
Dr.
doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Most welcome.